Elara's bare feet scraped against the rough wooden planks of the auction platform as the guards shoved her forward, the iron collar around her neck biting into her skin with every jerk of the chain. She stumbled, catching herself just before her knees hit the ground, her breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps that echoed in the crowded square. The jeers from the pack of bidders rose like a tidal wave, their wolfish eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. But she lifted her chin, refusing to let them see the terror clawing at her insides. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. The auctioneer's voice boomed over the din, his words slicing through her like a blade. Lot 23. Elara Voss, unmarked, unclaimed, and utterly worthless. No pack ties, no shifter blood to speak of human through and through. Starting bid, 1 silver coin. Who'll take this scrap off our hands before we toss her to the wilds? Elara's hands clenched into fists behind her back, the ropes binding her wrists digging deeper as she scanned the sea of faces. Alphas from minor packs leered, their baiters whispering bets on how quickly she'd break under labor or worse. She had been dragged from the orphanage's hidden cellar at dawn, labeled as excess baggage in a world where only the strong survived. Worthless, they called her because she carried no wolf within, no mate sent to draw power or alliance. But deep in her chest, a quiet fire burned, one that whispered she was more than this humiliation. Her eyes darted to the edges of the square, where shadows lingered under the ancient oaks of the royal forest, as if salvation might hide there. A low bid rang out 2 silvers from a grizzled baiter with scarred arms, likely seeking a drudge for his forge. Elara's stomach twisted, bile rising as she imagined the life ahead. Endless toil, broken only by the pack's casual cruelties. Another voice countered with 3, then 5, the numbers climbing not from value, but from the sport of it. The thrill of owning something deemed disposable. She forced her gaze steady, meeting the eyes of each bidder, daring them to see the defiance she hid beneath her tattered gown. The fabric clung to her sweat-dampened skin, the chill of the autumn wind raising goose flesh along her arms, but she wouldn't shiver. Not here, not now. The auctioneer laughed, pounding his gavel for attention. Come now, gentlemen. She's got spirit in those eyes, might make a fine plaything for your amigas to torment. Or perhaps a bait for the rogues beyond the borders. 10 silvers. Do I hear 15? Elara's pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out the murmurs. How had it come to this? Orphaned at birth, raised in the shadows of the lunar court, where humans were tolerated only as servants, she had scraped by on wits and whispers. But the new edicts from the throne demanded pure bloodlines, pure packs. Humans like her were culled, sold, or exiled. She had hidden her lack of shift for years, mimicking the subtle cues of the wolves around her. But one slip of failed moon rite had exposed her. Now, here she stood, a commodity in a game of power she never asked to play. A new voice cut through, smooth and mocking from the front row. 20 silvers. Let's see if the worthless one can scrub floors without weeping. The bidder was Lord Harlan, a minor alpha with a reputation for breaking spirits. His packmates chuckled, their eyes raking over her form. Elara's jaw tightened, a surge of quiet rage bubbling up. She wouldn't beg, wouldn't cry. Instead, she straightened her spine, letting the chain pull taut as if it were a crown rather than a noose. Bids flew faster now, the crowd's energy shifting from boredom to frenzy. 30, 40, 100. Elara's mind raced. Why the sudden interest? Was it her silence, her unyielding stare? Or something else? A scent she couldn't detect, but they could. The wolves' noses twitched, some leaning forward with furrowed brows. She had always been told she smelled of nothing, a void in a world of vibrant auras. Yet now, whispers spread like wildfire. Is that ... No, impossible. The auctioneer faltered, his hammer hovering. 200 silvers from the back. Going once. A hush fell over the square, thick and unnatural, as if the wind itself held its breath. Elara felt at first a prickle along her skin, like static before a storm. Then the crowd parted, wolves bowing low as a figure emerged from the royal entourage at the forest's edge. Tall, cloaked in midnight fur trimmed with gold, his presence commanded the air. The Alpha King Thorne Blackwood, ruler of the Lunar Realms, whose word was law and whose gaze could fell armies. Elara's heart stuttered. Why was he here? Kings didn't attend petty auctions. They sent emissaries for such filth. But there he stood, his silver eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that pinned her in place. The world narrowed to that connection, a thread of heat uncoiling in her chest despite the fear. He was beautiful in a lethal way, sharp jaw, dark hair falling in waves, broad shoulders that spoke of battles won. But it was the restrained power in his stance that made her breath catch, as if he held back a storm. The auctioneer stammered, dropping to one knee. "Your Majesty, we are honored." Thorne raised a hand, silencing him. His voice rumbled like distant thunder, deep and resonant. "Everything." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elara blinked, certain she had misheard. Everything. What did that mean? The auctioneer paled. "Sire? The bid is at 200. Everything," Thorne repeated, his eyes never leaving Elara's. "My treasury. My lands. My crown if need be. She is mine." The carriage halted with a jolt, doors swinging open to reveal a courtyard bathed in moonlight. Servants bowed low, their eyes averted as if she were already marked as royal property. A beta female approached, her demeanor crisp. "This way, miss. The king has ordered quarters prepared." Elara followed, her steps hesitant on the marble floors that gleamed like frozen rivers. The halls were a labyrinth of opulence tapestries depicting epic shifter battles, chandeliers of glowing moonstone, scents of lavender and smoke mingling in the air. Whispers trailed her. "The worthless one. What folly is this?" Her chambers were a revelation, silk bedding, a roaring fire, a bath steaming with herbs. The beta helped her undress, clucking over the bruises from the chains. "You'll heal quick enough. His Majesty insists on your comfort." "Why?" Elara finally voiced, her voice hoarse from disuse. The beta paused, eyes flickering with something like pity. That's for him to say rest now. Court awaits at dawn. Alone, Elara sank into the bath, the hot water soothing aches she hadn't acknowledged. But as steam rose, so did the emotions she'd suppressed hurt from years of rejection, longing for a place to belong, fear of what this new cage held. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent and hot. She was no longer worthless, but at what cost? The Alpha King's gaze lingered in her memory, charged with unspoken promises. Sleep came fitfully, dreams haunted by silver eyes and the pull of an invisible thread. When dawn broke, a knock echoed. The beta returned with gowns of emerald silk, fit for a consort. "The king summons you." Elara dressed, her heart racing. The throne room was vast, wolves in human form lining the walls like statues. Thorne sat upon the obsidian throne, his presence dominating. As she approached, knees threatening to buckle, his eyes met hers again, that same intensity, now laced with something softer, vulnerable. "You wonder why," he said without preamble, his voice echoing. The court fell silent. Elara nodded, finding her voice. "I am nothing. Why everything?" He rose, descending the steps until he stood before her, close enough that his heat enveloped her. "Because you are everything to me." His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek without touching. "My mate." The word shattered the air. Gasps erupted, But Elara felt only shock, a blooming warmth in her chest confirming the impossible. Human or not, the bond sparked to life, repressed desire flooding her senses. But with it came fear rejection from a court that would never accept her. Political storms brewing. Before she could respond, a door burst open. A rival Alpha stormed in, face twisted in rage. This is treason. A human mate? The Pax will revolt. Thorne's eyes glowed. A growl rumbling. Then let them try. Elara's world tilted, hurt and hope battling as the tension simmered. This was no end, but a beginning fraught with danger. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. Elara's breath caught in her throat, as Thorne's words hung in the air like a decree from the gods themselves. The throne room pulsing with the shock of his declaration. Her hand, so close to his, trembled with the urge to bridge the gap, but she held back, the weight of 100 stairs pressing down on her like invisible chains. The rival Alpha Lord Vance she recognized now, with his grizzled beard and eyes like sharpened flint snarled, his claws extending partially, as if ready to challenge the king then and there. The square erupted in chaos, shouts, snarls, wolves shifting partially in agitation. Elara's knees weakened, the chain the only thing keeping her upright. Why? She was worthless, a human stain on their perfect world. Yet the Alpha King had just wagered his kingdom for her. Her mind whirled with questions, but beneath it all, a forbidden spark ignited longing, sharp and unwelcome. What game was this? And why did his gaze feel like recognition? Like a bond she didn't understand? Guards surged forward at Thorne's nod, unlocking her chains with trembling hands. Elara rubbed her wrists, the raw skin stinging, but she didn't flinch. As they led her down from the platform, she passed close to him, close enough to catch his scent, wild and intoxicating, like pine and midnight rain. It wrapped around her, pulling at something deep within, something she had never felt before. Her body betrayed her with a shiver, not of cold, but of awakening. Thorne's hand brushed her arm as she was guided past, a fleeting touch that sent fire through her veins. "You are safe now," he murmured, so low only she could hear. But his eyes held shadows, a restrained hunger that mirrored her own budding ache. Elara didn't respond, her throat too tight. Safe. In the court of wolves, with a king who had just appended his world for a stranger. No, this was the beginning of something far more dangerous. As they escorted her toward the royal carriage, the crowd's whispers followed. Why her? What does he see? She didn't know. But as the carriage door closed behind her, sealing her in velvet darkness, Elara felt the first crack in her carefully built walls. Longing warred with fear, hope with hurt. The Alpha King had bought her not as a slave, but as... what? The question burned, unanswered, as the wheels began to turn toward the unknown. The journey to the palace blurred in a haze of exhaustion and confusion. Elara sat rigid on the plush seat, her hands clasped in her lap to hide their tremble. The guards outside rode in silence, their wolf forms pacing the carriage like sentinels. She stole glances through the curtained window, watching the forest give way to towering spires of stone and crystal. The heart of the lunar court, where politics wove tighter than any web. Why everything? The words echoed in her mind. Thorne Blackwood was no fool. His reign had unified fractured Pax, quelled rebellions with a mix of diplomacy and iron fist. To risk it all for a human girl, it made no sense, unless there was more to her than she knew. Rumors from the orphanage flickered whispers of a hidden heritage, a mother who had fled the court under mysterious circumstances. But Elara had dismissed them as fairy tales, crutches for the abandoned. The court erupted into a cacophony of growls and murmurs, wolves shifting uneasily on their feet, their loyalties tested in this single, explosive moment. Elara's mind reeled, the word, mate, echoing through her like a forbidden melody. Stirring sensations she had no name for, a warmth spreading from her core. A pull that made her acutely aware of Thorne's proximity, his scent wrapping around her senses like a lover's embrace. But she was human, wasn't she? How could this be? The bond, if real, defied everything she knew about their world, where mates were destined among shifters, not with outsiders like her. Thorne stepped closer, his body a shield between her and Vance, his voice a low rumble that silenced the room. You dare question the moon's will in my own hall, Vance? The bond is sacred, undeniable. She bears my mark in spirit, even if her blood runs different. Vance's lips curled in disdain, his packmates flanking him with bared teeth. Sacred? This is madness. A human queen. The packs will see it as weakness, an invitation for war. The border clans already chafe under your rule. Give them this excuse, and they'll tear the realms apart. Elara felt the tension coil tighter, her heart pounding in rhythm with the unspoken fears. She had heard tales of the border clans' feral groups who rejected the court's polished unity, clinging to ancient rites where only pure wolf blood reigned. If Thorne claimed her, it wasn't just her life at stake. It was his throne, his legacy. Yet beneath the fear, a quiet hope flickered. Could this be the belonging she had craved? His eyes flicked to hers, silver depths holding a promise of protection, but also a shadow of restraint, as if he fought his own instincts. The king's beta, a stern woman named Elara with scars crisscrossing her arms, stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din like a whip. Enough. The Alpha King has spoken. Disperse, or face the guard. Vance hesitated, his gaze lingering on Elara with a mix of pity and malice. This isn't over, Blackwood. The council will hear of this folly. He turned on his heel, his entourage following, leaving a trail of hostile whispers in their wake. As the room emptied, Thorne turned fully to her, his hand finally closing the distance to cup her elbow gently, the touch sending sparks along her skin. Come, he murmured, guiding her toward a side door away from prying eyes. We must speak in private. The court is a viper's nest today. Elara followed, her legs unsteady, the silk gown whispering against the stone floors. The corridor they entered was dimly lit by flickering torches, walls adorned with ancient murals of wolves under full moons, their eyes seeming to follow her. Each step amplified the bond's hum, a repressed desire building like a storm on the horizon. She wanted to pull away, to demand answers, but his presence was intoxicating, drawing her in despite the ache of uncertainty. They reached a secluded chamber, heavy oak doors closing behind them with a thud that echoed her racing pulse. The room was intimate plush rugs, a fire crackling in the hearth, bookshelves lined with tomes on shifter lore. Thorne released her arm, but the loss of contact felt like a physical wound, her body yearning for more. He paced to the window, staring out at the sprawling grounds where packs trained under the morning sun. Why me? Elara asked, her voice steadier than she felt. She stood with dignity, hiding the deep wounds of rejection that had scarred her soul. I'm human, no Volf, no power. You said everything at the auction, your treasury, your lands. For what? A bond that can't be? Thorne turned, his expression a mask of controlled emotion, but his eyes betrayed the longing mirroring her own. The bond doesn't lie, Elara. I felt it the moment I entered the square your scent, faint but undeniable, calling to me like a siren's song. Humans mating with shifters. It's rare, whispered in legends, but possible if the moon deems it. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. I've waited centuries for my mate. Packs press for alliances, for a queen of pure blood to secure the throne. But the moon chose you. Elara's breath hitched, hurt and hope battling in her chest. Centuries? He looked no older than 30, but shifters aged slowly, their lives spanning eras. The thought of him alone, starved for connection as she had been, softened something inside her. Yet fear lingered. Rejection from his world could crush her. And if the Pax reject me? If this bond brings ruin? His hand rose, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face, the touch lingering just long enough to ignite a fire. Then we fight. Together. The words were a vow, charged with repressed desire. His gaze tracing her lips as if memorizing them. She swallowed, the internal ache intensifying. I shouldn't want this, she thought, but the pull was relentless. A slow-burn tension that made every silence heavy with possibility. Before she could respond, a knock shattered the moment. Elara entered, her face grim. Sire, the council demands an audience. Rumors spread like wildfire. Vance is rallying dissenters. Thorne's jaw tightened, a growl escaping. Stall them. I need time with her. Elara nodded, but her eyes flicked to Elara with veiled curiosity. As you wish. But be swift, the political tides turn quickly. As she left, Thorne sighed, rubbing his temples. This is the world you're entering, Elara. Court drama. Endless pressures. But I won't let it touch you. He moved to a side table, pouring 2 goblets of wine, offering one to her. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, sending another jolt through her. She sipped, the rich liquid warming her, loosening the knot of fear. Tell me about the bond. What does it mean for me? He sat beside her on a velvet settee, close enough that their thighs nearly touched. The proximity a delicious torment. It's a soul-deep connection. Shared emotions, heightened senses. For shifters, it awakens the wolf, strengthens us. For you, it might manifest differently. Dreams, intuitions, and desire. His voice caught, eyes darkening. A hunger that builds until claimed. Elara's cheeks flushed, the repressed desire coiling tighter. She set the goblet down, her hand trembling. Claimed? Like a marking? He nodded, his gaze intense. A bite during intimacy. It seals the bond, makes it unbreakable. The air thickened, every glance loaded, every breath a confession unspoken. She stood, needing distance to think, pacing to the fire. The flames danced, mirroring the quiet fire within her that grew with each moment. Strong but soft, she reminded herself, dignified under pressure. I won't be a pawn, Thorne. If this is real, I need to understand my place. He rose, approaching slowly, like a predator giving prey a chance to flee. You are no pawn. You are my equal, my queen. His hand captured hers, pulling her gently against him. The contact was electric, her body molding to his as if made for it. Longing surged, hurt from past rejections fading under the hope of his touch. But before lips could meet, shouts echoed from the hall guards clashing with intruders. Thorne pulled back, cursing. Stay here, he commanded, shifting partially, claws and fangs emerging as he burst through the door. Elara's heart raced, fear spiking. Alone, she pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the bond's pulse. What threat lurked now? Whispers from the orphanage returned, her mother's flight, a secret lineage. Could she be more than human? Minutes stretched like hours until Elara returned, breathless. Assassins Vance is doing. The king is safe, but the council convenes. You must prepare. They'll test you. Elara nodded, quiet courage stealing her. As they hurried to the council chambers, the political pressure mounted, rivals circling like sharks. The slow burn romance simmered, attraction intensifying with each restrained glance. In the grand hall, alphas from across the realms gathered, their eyes appraising her like a threat. Thorne stood at the head, his presence a beacon. "Elara Voss, my fated mate," he announced, daring opposition. Vance sneered. "Prove it. Let her face the moon rite. If she's truly bonded, the wolf spirit will respond." Murmurs rose, stakes escalating. Elara's stomach twisted. The rite had exposed her before. But Thorne's hand found hers under the table, a squeeze of support. "She will," he said, eyes locked on hers, filled with unspoken faith. As preparations began, tension built a rite under the next full moon, where failure meant exile or death. Elara felt the internal conflict crack open, desire for Thorne warring with fear of rejection. One powerful moment came as they parted for the night. His lips brushing her forehead, a whisper of "mine" that sent shivers down her spine. But in the shadows a servant slipped her a note. "Your blood holds secrets. Seek the oracle before the rite or lose everything." Betrayal loomed, the cliffhanger forcing her toward forbidden truths. The council dispersed, but Elara's mind whirled. Who sent the note? As she retired to her chambers, Thorne escorted her, his hand on the small of her back, a touch loaded with promise. "Trust me," he murmured at her door, eyes glowing with restrained hunger. She nodded, but inside, doubt festered. The bond pulled, but secrets threatened to unravel it. That night, dreams plagued her, visions of a woman fleeing with a babe. Whispers of hybrid blood. Awakening in sweat, she knew she couldn't wait. Slipping into the halls under cover of darkness, she sought the oracle's tower, heart pounding with quiet bravery. Guards patrolled, but she evaded them, her steps silent from years of hiding. The tower loomed, ancient and foreboding. Inside, the oracle, an elderly shifter with milky eyes, waited as if expecting her. "The worthless one," she croaked. "Or so they call you. But blood tells truths." Elara knelt, voice steady. "What am I?" The oracle's hand pressed to her forehead, visions flooding. A shifter father, a human mother, suppressed wolf genes waiting to awaken. "You are latent, child. The bond will ignite it, but only if claimed fully." Shock coursed through her, hope blooming amid the hurt. She was no mere human, the auction's label a lie. But as she left, footsteps echoed Vance's spies. She fled, bursting into her room, only to find Thorne waiting, concern etched on his face. "What have you done?" he asked, pulling her close. The embrace was charged, bodies pressing in unexpected closeness. "Seeking truth," she whispered, lips inches from his. His growl was possessive, desire breaking free. "You risk too much." But his mouth captured hers in a kiss that shattered restraint, fire exploding between them. Yet as passion built, a dagger glinted in the shadows, an assassin lunging. Thorne shoved her aside, tackling the intruder. Blood spilling. Elara screamed, the threat crystallizing. The court wasn't safe. Rivals wanted her gone. As guards rushed in, subduing the attacker, Thorne's eyes met hers, wounded but fierce. This ends now. But the confession hung. Her secret heritage, unspoken. The cliffhanger loomed. Who sent the assassin? And would revealing her truth strengthen the bond or doom it? The pressure mounted, political intrigue weaving with personal wounds. Elara bandaged Thorne's arm in the healer's wing, their touches lingering, tension simmering. "I won't let them take you," he vowed. She cupped his face, internal ache deepening. "Nor I you." Hope won a battle, but fear lingered. Days blurred into preparations for the rite, court gossip fueling rivals. One evening, during a tense dinner, Vance approached, his smile sly. "A word, my lady?" Thorne tensed, but Elara met Vance's gaze with dignity. "Speak. In private," he insisted. Thorne's hand gripped hers. "Anything you say to her, you say to me." Vance leaned in, voice low. "Beware the king's secrets. He withholds more than you know past mates, broken bonds." Elara's heart stuttered, gout seeding. Was it true? Thorne's eyes flashed denial, but a shadow crossed them. Later, alone, she confronted him. "Tell me everything." He sighed, pulling her to the balcony under stars. "There was one a political match, not fated. She betrayed me, allied with enemies. It ended in blood." Hurt flared repressed but real. "Why hide it? Fear you'd see me as damaged." His vulnerability cracked her walls, longing surging. Their kiss deepened, hands exploring with restrained fire. But a messenger interrupted. The border clan's march war brews over the human mate. Stakes rose, emotional and political. Elara's quiet courage shone as she proposed. "Let me address them. Show I'm no weakness." Thorne hesitated, pride and protectiveness warring. "It's dangerous." "So is hiding," she countered, hidden fire emerging. He agreed, the mid-pressure intensifying attraction. At the assembly, Elara stood tall, voice steady. "I may lack claws, but not heart. Judge me by deeds, not blood." Murmurs shifted, some respectful, others hostile. Vance smirked, but a spark of support grew. That night, closeness tempted, a hand touch evolving to embrace. "You amaze me," Thorne breathed, scent recognition deepening the bond. But as they parted, Elara overheard courtiers. "The king's withholding. The oracle's prophecy warns of a hybrid queen bringing ruin." Shock hit. Did Thorne know her secret? Betrayal simmered, the end cliffhanger forcing confrontation. Her steps led back to him, door creaking open. "What aren't you telling me?" His eyes widened, the reveal hanging by a thread. Elara stood in the doorway, moonlight spilling across her bare feet, the silk nightgown clinging to her like a second skin. Her voice came out quiet, almost gentle, but it cut deeper than any shout. "What aren't you telling me, Thorne?" He rose from the chair by the fire, so fast the goblet tipped and wine bled across the rug. His eyes, those silver eyes that had once felt like safety, now held a storm she couldn't read. For one heartbeat he looked like he might lie. Then the mask cracked. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopped an arm's length away, and answered with the truth she already feared. "The oracle told me the night after the auction. Your blood is hybrid, latent wolf, dormant since birth. The bond will wake it, but only if I mark you completely. And if we fail, if the rite goes wrong, the prophecy says a hybrid queen will shatter the Lunar Realms." Elara felt the floor tilt. Every wound she had ever hidden rose up at once. The orphanage taunts, the auction block, the years of being called nothing. And now this her very existence labelled a curse. She took one step back. "You knew. From the beginning. You bought me knowing I might destroy everything you built." Thorne's hands flexed at his sides, claws half extended. "I bought you because the moment I saw you, the bond roared so loud I almost shifted in front of the entire square. I knew the risk. I still paid everything." She laughed a small, broken sound. "That's not love, Thorne. That's strategy with a heartbeat." His growl was instant, low and pained. Don't do that." He closed the distance, cupped her face with both hands, thumbs brushing the tears she hadn't realized were falling. "It is love. It's the only thing that has ever mattered more than the crown. I would burn the throne tomorrow if it meant keeping you." She searched his eyes, looking for the lie, the hesitation. She found only raw longing and fear. Fear that she would walk away now that she knew the full price. Her own heart answered before her mind could stop it. She rose on her toes and kissed him. Not soft, not tentative. A kiss that tasted of hurt, of hope, of every repressed desire that had been clawing at her since the auction platform. His arms banded around her waist, lifting her until her back hit the wall. Bodies pressed so tight she felt his heartbeat slamming against hers. The bond sang, a deep, vibrating note that made her skin burn. His mouth moved to her throat, teeth grazing the spot where the mark would go, and she gasped, fingers tangling in his hair. Thorne. It was half plea, half warning. He froze, forehead pressed to hers, breathing hard. Say stop and I stop. Forever. She didn't say stop. Instead, she pulled him back to her mouth, slower this time, letting the kiss turn into something aching and deliberate. Every touch felt like a confession. I'm terrified. I want you anyway. I shouldn't, but I do. They broke apart only when air became necessary. Thorne rested his forehead against hers, voice rough. The rite is in 4 nights. If you choose me, if you let me mark you, the wolf inside will rise. But if the prophecy is true, the realms could fracture. Elara slid down until her feet touched the floor again. Her legs shook. She pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the frantic rhythm beneath her palm. Then we make sure the prophecy is wrong. He stared at her like she had just offered him the moon itself. You would still choose this? After everything? She lifted her chin, quiet courage burning bright. I've spent my life being told I'm worthless. I'm done believing it. If I'm your mate, then I fight for us. Both of us. For the first time since she had met him, Thorne Blackwood looked truly undone. He dropped to one knee, king of the Lunar Realms, kneeling before a girl the world had called scrap. He took her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Then we fight together. The next 3 days became a storm of preparation and stolen moments. Court sessions where alphas shouted over each other, demanding proof, demanding blood. Training yards where Elara insisted on learning basic defense, even though Thorne growled every time a blade came near her. Nights when they met in secret passages, kissing until they were dizzy, hands roaming, but never crossing the final line, saving that for the right. For the moment the bond would either save them or break them. On the second night, in a hidden garden under a crescent moon, Thorne pulled her onto his lap on a stone bench. His fingers traced the line of her collarbone. Tell me something no one else knows, he murmured. Elara rested her head on his shoulder. When I was 12, I stole a book from the orphanage library. A romance about a human girl and a wolf prince. I read it until the pages fell out. Every night I pretended I was her. Thorne's arms tightened. You are her. And I'm the fool who almost lost you because I was too afraid to believe the moon could choose someone like you. She turned, straddling him, hands framing his face. You're not a fool. You're mine. The kiss that followed was slow, drugging, full of promises. His hands slid under the hem of her gown, palms hot on her thighs. She rocked against him once, twice, and felt him harden beneath her. A whimper escaped her throat. He groaned into her mouth. 4 more nights. I'm going to die before then. She smiled against his lips. Good. Then you'll understand how I feel every time you look at me. On the 3rd night, Vance made his move. During the evening banquet he rose, goblet in hand, voice carrying to every corner of the hall. A toast to the hybrid queen who will either save us or doom us. Let the right reveal the truth. Silence fell like a blade. Every eye turned to Elara. She stood slowly, glass in hand, spine straight. She met Vance's stare without flinching. To truth, she said clearly. Then she drank. One by one the alphas followed, some grudgingly, some with respect. Thorne's hand found hers under the table and squeezed so hard it hurt. Pride. Pure pride. Later, in the corridor, he backed her against a tapestry, kissing her fiercely. You were magnificent. She tugged his shirt open, fingers tracing the scars on his chest. I was terrified. He smiled against her mouth. I know. That's why it mattered. The morning of the rite dawned cold and silver. Elara stood before the mirror in her chambers, while handmaidens dressed her in white gossamer that flowed like moonlight. No jewelry, no crown, just her, the woman who had been sold for 1 silver coin. Now she would either become queen or lose everything. Thorne entered without knocking. He stopped dead, eyes devouring her. Gods! She turned, heart in her throat. Do I look like a queen? He crossed the room, took her face in his hands. You look like mine. One last kiss deep, desperate, tasting of everything they might lose tonight. Then he led her out. The sacred grove was packed. Thousands of wolves, alphas, betas, omegas, all waiting under a sky so clear the stars looked close enough to touch. A stone circle stood in the center, lit by torches. At its heart, a raised altar draped in black velvet. Elara walked the path alone, Thorne a step behind. Every eye followed her, some hostile, some curious, some already softening. She stepped onto the altar. The high priestess, an ancient female with silver fur, lifted her arms. Moon Mother, witness this bond. If it is true, awaken the wolf. If it is false, let judgment fall. Thorne joined her. He removed his shirt, muscles gleaming in the torchlight. Then he took Elara's hands, placed them on his chest. Say the words, the priestess commanded. Elara's voice shook only once. I, Elara Voss, accept Thorne Blackwood as my mate. I offer my blood, my body, my soul. Thorne's reply was steady as stone. I, Thorne Blackwood, claim Elara Voss as my mate. I offer my strength, my protection, my life. The priestess nodded. Then let the mark be given. Thorne pulled Elara against him. His mouth found the curve of her neck. She felt his teeth graze, then press. Pain flared sharp, bright. Then pleasure crashed over it like a wave, drowning everything. The bond ignited. Heat roared through her veins. Something inside her howled small, newborn, but alive. She cried out, nails digging into his shoulders. Fur rippled along her arms, then vanished. Eyes glowing gold for 1 heartbeat, then back to her own color. The wolf was there. Awake. Hers. The grove exploded in howls, some triumphant, some stunned. Thorne lifted his head, blood on his lips, eyes shining. She is marked. She is queen. But before the cheering could swell, Vance stepped into the circle, claws out. Not yet. The prophecy. She must prove she will not shatter the realms. He shifted massive black wolf, snarling. Challenge issued. Thorne shoved Elara behind him, already changing, fur sprouting, bones cracking. But she grabbed his arm. No, this is mine. She stepped forward. The crowd gasped. A newly awakened wolf against a seasoned alpha. Suicide. Yet Elara closed her eyes, felt the new power coil inside her. When she opened them again, they glowed gold. She didn't shift fully, not yet, but claws slid from her fingertips. Fangs lengthened just enough. She looked at Vance and said one word. Yield. Vance lunged. Elara moved faster than she had ever moved in her life. She ducked under his jaws, raked claws across his flank, spun, and slammed her palm into his chest. Power roar, hybrid, moon-blessed flared. Vance flew backward, crashing into the stone circle. He lay there, panting, bloodied. Then he rolled to his belly. Yielded. Silence. Then the entire grove erupted in roars of approval. Thorne caught Elara as her knees buckled. He lifted her in his arms, voice shaking. "My queen." She smiled up at him, exhausted, exhilarated. "Your mate." They kissed slow, deep in front of thousands. The bond sang, complete. But as the crowd chanted her name, Elara saw something that made her blood run cold. In the shadows at the edge of the grove, a cloaked figure watched. Not cheering, not bowing, waiting. And in that figure's hand glinted a vial, the same sleeping draught vial she had once seen beside a bed in the orphanage. The same one her mother had used to escape. Elara's grip tightened on Thorne's shoulders. Someone was still trying to take her away. And this time, they would not stop at an auction. The celebration continued, but she leaned into Thorne's ear and whispered, "We're not safe yet." He looked down at her, eyes narrowing, and he nodded once. "Tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we hunt." The chapter ended with them walking back toward the palace, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, the new wolf inside her purring in contentment, and the shadow in the trees watching every step. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. Elara clung to Thorne's arm as they made their way through the throng of celebrants, the grove's torches casting flickering shadows that danced like restless spirits across the ancient trees. Her new wolf senses sharpened everything. The scent of pine mixed with the metallic tang of blood from Vance's wounds, the distant howls of packs echoing their approval, and the subtle undercurrent of unease rippling through the crowd like a hidden current. She scanned the edges of the gathering again, but the cloaked figure had vanished, leaving only the ghost of that glinting vial in her mind, a reminder that their victory was fragile, laced with unseen threats. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Thorne's grip tightened on her waist, his body a solid anchor amid the chaos, but she felt the tension in his muscles, the restrained power humming just beneath his skin. "Describe them again," he murmured, his voice low enough to blend with the cheers, his silver eyes sweeping the perimeter with predatory focus. Elara recounted the details, the hood obscuring the face, the vial's familiar shape, the way the figure had lingered like a predator assessing its prey each word, stirring a deeper ache in her chest. A blend of triumph soured by fear. The palace gates loomed ahead, guarded by baiters who bowed deeply as they passed. But Elara's mind raced ahead to the chambers waiting within, where safety felt like an illusion. The mark on her neck throbbed gently, a reminder of the bond now sealed, the wolf within her, stirring with newfound energy that made her feel alive, powerful yet vulnerable. Thorne guided her up the grand staircase, his hand never leaving hers, a silent promise amid the simmering tension that bound them tighter than any chain. Once inside their private suite, a sprawl of velvet-draped rooms overlooking the moonlit gardens, Thorne barred the door and turned to her, his expression a storm of concern and desire. "You should rest," he said, though his eyes traced the curve of her neck where his mark bloomed like a brand, sending a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the chill in the air. Elara shook her head, stepping closer, her fingers brushing his jaw, feeling the stubble that spoke of days without reprieve. "Not until we understand this threat. That vial, it's the same as the ones from the orphanage tailies. Sleeping draughts used for escapes or worse." He captured her hand, pressing it to his lips, the touch igniting sparks along her skin. "Lyra is already investigating. Scouts are combing the grove. But tonight, Elara, let me tend to you." His voice dropped, laced with that repressed hunger that made her pulse quicken, the bond pulling them toward the intimacy they had only begun to explore. She leaned into him, her body molding to his, but doubt lingered, a quiet wound from the secrets he had kept, now healing but still tender. The fire crackled in the hearth as Thorne led her to the bed, his movements deliberate, charged with the slow-burn tension that had defined them from the start. He helped her out of the gossamer gown, his fingers lingering on her shoulders, tracing the new sensitivity of her skin, where the wolf's awakening had heightened every sensation. "You're changing," he whispered, awe in his tone as he kissed the mark, sending waves of pleasure through her. Elara gasped, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him down with her onto the silk sheets. "Show me," she breathed, her voice a mix of command and plea, the internal ache building to a fever pitch. Their lovemaking was a revelation, slow at first, exploratory, each touch a confession of the longing they had starved for so long. Thorne's mouth mapped her body with reverence, his hands igniting fires wherever they roamed, while Elara discovered her own power, her claws lightly scoring his back as the wolf purred in approval. Hurt and hope intertwined, the political pressures of the court fading under the weight of their connection. But even in ecstasy, a shadow loomed, the vial's mystery, a threat that could unravel it all. Dawn broke with Lyra's urgent knock, shattering the fragile peace. Thorne rose, wrapping a robe around himself, while Elara pulled the sheets higher, her body still humming from the night's intimacies. The beta entered, face grim, holding a small pouch. "We found this in the grove, sire," dropped by the figure Elara described. She spilled the contents onto the table, a shattered vial shard, residue gleaming faintly, and a scrap of parchment with faded script. "The hybrid awakens ruin. Flee or fall." Elara's stomach twisted, the words echoing the prophecy Thorne had revealed, stirring fresh fear of rejection from a world that might never accept her. "It's a warning or a lure," she said, her voice steady despite the internal storm. Thorne's eyes darkened, a growl rumbling. "Fancy's work? Or something older?" He paced, the political drama closing in like walls, rivals no doubt seizing on the rites drama to sow dissent. The council convened by midday, the throne room thick with alphas whose loyalties shifted like sand. Vance, bandaged but unbowed, stood at the forefront, his smirk a blade. The rite proved her blood, but not her loyalty. Whispers of a cloaked intruder, perhaps an ally of the hybrid, plotting from within. Murmurs rose, eyes turning to Elara with suspicion. She stood beside Thorne, chin high, hiding the deep wounds of doubt, her quiet bravery a shield. "I fought for this realm last night," she declared, voice ringing clear. "Judge me by that, not shadows." Thorne's hand found hers, a squeeze of support, but the tension simmered, attraction intensifying under the strain, as his gaze promised later retribution in private. The debate raged, border clans demanding proof of her strength, courtiers gossiping of ancient curses tied to hybrid blood. One alpha, Lady Sable from the Eastern Pax, leaned forward. "Let her prove it in the trials. Face the oracle's maze, survive, and we bend the knee." Elara's heart raced, the proposal a gauntlet of political pressure, but Thorne's growl silenced objections. "She has proven enough. But if it quiets the vipers..." His eyes met hers, filled with restrained desire and worry. "Only if you choose." She nodded, hidden fire growing. "I choose." The council adjourned, but the stakes rose, temptation beckoning in stolen glances as they retreated to prepare. Afternoons blurred into training Thorne, teaching her to harness the wolf, their sessions charged with proximity, hands correcting stances turning to caresses. "Feel the shift," he murmured, body pressed to hers from behind, breath hot on her neck. Elara leaned back, desire coiling, but duty pulled them apart, the maze looming like a spectre. That evening, in the library's dim glow, Elara pored over tomes on hybrid law, Thorne at her side, His fingers traced patterns on her thigh under the table. A powerful moment of unexpected closeness that cracked her focus. "We shouldn't," she whispered, but her hand covered his, holding it there. The bond thrummed, repressed desire breaking free in a heated kiss amid the stacks. Bodies grinding until a servant's approach forced restraint. But the note arrived at midnight, slipped under their door. "The vial holds your mother's truth. Meet at the forgotten crypt, alone." Elara's breath caught, longing for answers warring with fear. Thorne snatched it, scenting the paper. "A trap. We go together." The crypt lay beyond the palace, ruins shrouded in mist, political intrigue thickening the air. They crept through the night. Hands linked. Tension simmering. Inside, torchlight revealed the cloaked figure unhooded now. A woman with Elara's eyes, aged but fierce. "Daughter," she whispered. Shock froze Elara, hurt blooming as truth spilled. Her mother, a hybrid banished for loving a human. The vial a draft to suppress the wolf until safety. "I fled to protect you from the court's blades. But now, with the bond awakened, they come for us both." Thorne's growl echoed. "Who?" But shadows stirred, assassins lunging from alcoves. Blades poisoned with the draft's residue. Battle erupted. Elara's wolf roaring free, claws and fangs defending her newfound family. Thorne fought like a tempest, but one blade grazed him, the draft seeping in, his movements slowing. Elara dispatched the last attacker, turning to him in panic. "Thorne!" He slumped, eyes dimming. Her mother pressed the vial shard to his wound. It counters itself in small doses. "Hold on." As he stabilized, betrayal shattered her Vance's seal on an assassin's cloak. But her mother's words hung. "There's more. The prophecy isn't ruin, it's rebirth. But only if you claim the throne fully." The night ended with them retreating. Thorne weakened. Elara's resolve steeling. Political storms brewed, attraction deepening amid the chaos. One touch in the healer, swing her hand on his chest, evolved to a whispered vow. "I won't lose you." Yet as dawn approached, a messenger burst in. The border clans attack at the maze's edge. They claim the hybrid brings war. Stakes skyrocketed, emotional wounds cracking open. Elara stood, quiet courage blazing. "Then we meet them." The chapter closed on the precipice, them riding out. Her mother's secrets unfolding, a betrayal that could shatter beliefs, and an overheard truth in the wind. The king has a hidden heir. Elara gripped the reins of her mount tightly, the wind whipping through her hair as the palace faded behind them, the thundering hooves of Thorne's guard echoing her pounding heart. The border clan's attack had come swift as a storm. Their war cries carried on the dawn breeze, fueled by whispers of the hybrid queen who would bring either salvation or destruction. Her mother as revelation still burned in her mind, the vial's draft not a weapon, but a shield suppressing her wolf until the bond could awaken it fully. And now, with Thorne at her side weakened, but unyielding, she rode toward the confrontation that would define their reign. Her wolf stirred within, gold eyes flashing in her vision as senses heightened. The acrid scent of smoke from distant campfires, the rustle of ambushes in the underbrush. Thorne glanced at her, his silver gaze at anchor amid the chaos, a silent vow passing between them despite the ache of unspoken truths, the overheard whisper of a hidden heir that gnawed at her trust. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice rough from the draft's lingering effects, but his hand reached out, brushing hers in a touch that reignited the fire of their bond. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you." The maze's edge loomed, ancient stone walls overgrown with vines that whispered secrets of past trials, the border clan's banners fluttering defiantly atop makeshift barricades. Elara's mother, Myra, rode beside them now, her hybrid strength a mirror to Elara's own, eyes fierce with the protectiveness of years lost. "They fear what they don't understand," Myra said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Show them the rebirth, not the ruin." Elara nodded, quiet courage blooming into resolve, her hidden fire no longer suppressed but ablaze ready to consume doubt. As they crested the hill, the clans revealed themselves, a sea of wolves in partial shift, claws glinting under the rising sun, led by Alpha King, a scarred giant whose roar shook the ground. "The hybrid horde brings war," he bellowed, his pack snarling in agreement. Arrows nocked and aimed. Thorne raised a hand, halting their advance, his presence commanding even in vulnerability. "This ends in words, not blood, Kale. The moon has chosen Elara as queen, her blood the bridge between worlds." Kale laughed, a guttural sound that echoed mockery. "Chosen? Or cursed? We heard the prophecy rune follows her steps. Yield the throne, Blackwood, or we take it." The air thickened with political pressure, rivals from the court no doubt having sown these seeds, Vance's betrayal threading through like poison. Elara dismounted, stepping forward despite Thorne's protective growl, her gown billowing like a flag of defiance. "I am no curse," she declared, voice steady, laced with the emotional intelligence that had carried her through auctions and rejections. "I am your future. Hybrid blood unites us, human heart, wolf soul. Fight me if you must, but know I fight for all." The clans hesitated, murmurs rippling as her words landed, hope battling hurt in their eyes. But Kale charged, shifting fully into a massive grey wolf, jaws snapping. Elara's wolf answered, the shift seamless now, fur rippling silver gold as she met him mid-leap, claws clashing in a whirlwind of fury. Pain flared his teeth, grazing her flank, but she twisted, using the maze's vines to swing and slam him down, her latent power surging like a tidal wave. The bond with Thorne pulsed, lending strength, his own shift partial as he dispatched flanking attackers, their movements a dance of synchronized protection. Myra joined the fray, her draft-suppressed wolf awakening in echoes of Elara's, mother and daughter fighting back-to-back, political stakes manifesting in every strike. "You were born for this," Myra shouted over the chaos, a confession wrapped in battle cries. Elara pinned Kale, fangs at his throat, but held back dignity under pressure, refusing to kill. "Yield," she commanded, eyes glowing, "and join us in rebirth." Kale shifted back, chest heaving, respect dawning in his gaze. The moon speaks true. One by one the clans knelt, the threat dissolving into alliance, emotional stakes resolving in a wave of unity. But as victory settled, Elara turned to Thorne, the overheard truth a knife in the silence. "The hidden heir," she said softly, fear of rejection resurfacing amid the hope. "Tell me now." Thorne's face paled, but he pulled her aside, away from listening ears, into the maze's shadowed heart. His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping blood from her cheek. "Not a child of blood," he confessed, voice breaking with vulnerability. "A political ploy from my past, a false claim to secure alliances before you. I ended it when the bond called me to you. No secrets left, Elara. Only us." Heart warred with understanding, but the bond's truth hummed undeniable longing, repressed no more, flooding her senses. She pulled him close, their kiss a seal on forgiveness, bodies pressing in unexpected closeness amid the ruins, tension simmering into passion. "No more shadows," she whispered against his lips. His growl was possessive, hands roaming with the freedom of resolution. "Never again." The court reconvened, that eve, transformed clans integrated, Vance exiled in chains, his betrayal exposed by captured assassins. Elara stood beside Thorne on the throne, crowned in moonstone. Her mother's place at court restored. Whispers turned to cheers, political drama yielding to peace. The prophecy fulfilled, not in ruin but in renewal. One powerful moment sealed it. Thorne's hand on her belly. A spark of life sensed through the bond their air. Hybrid and strong. Years blurred in harmony. Elara's quiet bravery shaping policies of inclusion. Thorne's strength tempered by her softness. Their love deepened, slow burn evolving into eternal flame. Every touch a reminder of the auction that had birthed a queen. In quiet nights they shared stories of wounds healed, desires unbound, the realms thriving under their rule. As the full moon rose on their anniversary, Elara leaned into Thorne's embrace on the balcony, watching Pax run free. "We were worth everything," she murmured. He kissed her temple, eyes shining. "You were always everything." The story closed with them entwined, bonds unbroken, a testament to longing conquered and hope eternal. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.